Welcome to another video. Hope everyone's doing alright and that. Welcome to my second attempt at building one of these things, a Land Rover Series 1 pickup. I first attempted this model about a year ago and it ended in absolute disaster when I managed to spill a full tub of this Tamiya cement all over it. I was absolutely gutted. All the windows started frosting up, the paint blistered. Since then bits have fallen off it and that, and it's in a pretty sad, sorry state. But it's took us about 9 months to get my hands on one, but it's finally here, and I thought I want to put it right and see if I can come up with a decent Land Rover. I was going to stick to this colour scheme, like farmer spec as I call it, green with a cream roof, but I've managed to get my hands on a proper farmer spec Land Rover. I was lucky enough to visit a guy who was selling some models on Facebook, and I'll tell you what, it was like stepping inside an episode of American Pickers. It was nuts. 40-foot barn, floor to ceiling of any kind of model kit you could imagine. I'm going to be building one in the next video and I'll go into it a bit more there and that. But yeah, fantastic. So right, let's get this out of the box, see what we're facing. I'll run you through my plans and we'll see this thing come together. Right, let's get this thing out of the box and see what I'll be facing. I see I've built it before and there's a couple of little tricky bits on this one, like especially around the wheels. The wheels seem to be really hard to put on, but we've got our instructions. Pretty straightforward. I have downloaded them from ScaleMates. I prefer to work off the tablet than these paper ones, but they're alright for just sitting there planning your route and that. They're fantastic. So we'll put them to one side for now. Got with decals, nice and small. There's a couple of absolute tiny ones there. So I'll put them out the way to keep them dry. Then we've got our paints in that. I say I was going to paint it farmer spec as I call it, but since I've managed to get my hands on this one, I'm going to try and stick as close to their paint scheme as I can. It's not going to be exact because I haven't got the exact paints, but I think it's a Series 1 Land Rover. Any army type base paint colours will be fine. Right, with the parts out, I'll quickly run through my plans with you. I'm going to be building as much as I possibly can, then painting it. I found the last time, I don't know if it was because I painted it first, but a lot of these parts wouldn't stick on properly and a lot of it wasn't straight. So my plan is to do it bare plastic, glue as much up as I possibly can. I'm going to be paying as much attention as I can to this front axle. I had real problems with this the last time. I don't even think I stuck it on properly, and that's why it's come off. But fantastic. The glass, I'm going to be putting the glass in at the end. Apart from the headlights, they've got to go in. I'll probably use that Maskell stuff again before I paint it and that. But I'm going to be using a black primer. I'm going to try and stick to their colour scheme as much as I possibly can. I might have to vary it a little bit. And yeah, fantastic. So grab yourself a cuppa, put your feet up, we'll go into the hyperlapse. One video, hopefully one Land Rover. Fantastic.
In the shadow of war, Britain needed more than recovery. It needed resilience. Industry had been turned to rubble. Steel was rationed. Fuel was precious. But innovation thrived. In 1947, on a beach in Anglesey, Wales, a man named Maurice Wilkes picked up a stick and sketched an idea in the sand. His brother, Spencer, then managing director at the Rover company, watched as a boxy outline took shape. It was inspired by the Willys Jeep, the wartime workhorse used by Allied forces. Maurice wanted something similar, but built for peace. A go-anywhere, do-anything vehicle, tough enough for farming, simple enough to maintain, and versatile enough to cross continents. That drawing became the blueprint for the first Land Rover. The vehicle would be called simply Land Rover. It didn't have a name yet. The term Series 1 would come later. The design was deliberately minimal. Britain's post-war economy meant there was no room for luxury. The body was built from Burma Bright, a lightweight aluminium alloy left over from wartime aircraft production. It was rust-resistant, easy to shape, and didn't require paint in the early versions. Many of the first Land Rovers were finished in surplus military green, not by choice, but because that's what was available. Beneath the boxy panels sat a tough steel ladder chassis. The engine, a 1.6-litre petrol unit borrowed from Rover's P3 saloon. Modest power, around 50 horsepower, but with permanent four-wheel drive and a low-range gearbox. It could pull a plough or climb a hillside. The steering wheel was originally mounted in the center, not for any futuristic reason, but so Rover could build just one version for both left and right-hand drive markets. That center steer design never made it to production, but the concept showed Rover's practical, engineering-first thinking. In April 1948, the Land Rover made its public debut at the Amsterdam Motor Show. Within days, it was clear Rover had a hit on its hands. The Land Rover was simple but rugged, agricultural but adaptable. It wasn't a car, it wasn't a truck, it was something new. It sold fast, not just in Britain, but across the Commonwealth. Australia, Africa, the Middle East, a British-built machine that could reach where roads didn't. Production began at Solihull, in a wartime shadow factory that had once built aircraft. Now, it was echoing with the rattle of body panels and the growl of petrol engines. In its first year, Rover built over 8,000 units. Demand only grew. By 1950, the headlights were moved from behind the grille to sit proudly on the front wings. Left-hand drive versions were introduced for export. Rover even released specialist attachments. Power takeoff units that let the Land Rover drive farming equipment or pumps directly from the engine. It was a tractor in the fields and a truck on the road. In 1952, the engine was upgraded to a 2.0-litre unit, giving it better torque and more pulling power. A year later, in 1954, Rover introduced a longer wheelbase version, a 107-inch chassis, compared to the original's 80-inch frame. It allowed more space in the rear and created new possibilities: pickup beds, safari-style station wagons, even mobile workshops. Wherever British engineers or farmers or surveyors went, the Land Rover followed. In 1957, a new diesel engine was introduced. It was slow and loud, but extremely efficient. For commercial users, especially in agriculture, it was a game changer. That same year, the short wheelbase version was extended to 88 inches, improving stability and interior space. By the end of 1958, over 200,000 Series 1 vehicles had been produced. And by that point, the name Series 1 was being used informally, because a new generation was arriving. The Series 2, it had curved sides, a wider body, and more power, but it was built on the same philosophy. Still, the original, the Series, I remained the purest form. An unfiltered expression of post-war necessity and British practicality. Around the world, the Land Rover Series, I earned a reputation for being nearly unbreakable. In Africa, it crossed deserts. In Asia, it crawled through jungles. In the Arctic, it braved snow and ice. In military service, in farming, in exploration, it became the vehicle that showed up when others couldn't. It was used by the British Army, the Royal Geographical Society, the Red Cross, and oil companies operating in the remotest corners of the planet. Some were fitted with canvas roofs, others had no roof at all. Some carried radios and stretchers, others carried tools and sheepdogs. It was the Swiss Army knife of vehicles. And unlike many icons, it was built to work, not to be admired. It didn't win beauty contests, but it won trust. It became part of the landscape, from the Yorkshire Dales to the Serengeti Plains. Even today, collectors seek out the earliest Series 1s, especially those from the very first production year. 1948, known as the 80-inch models. They are highly prized, not for luxury, but for authenticity, simplicity, purpose. By the time production ended in 1958, the Land Rover series, I had created an entirely new category of vehicle, the utility 4x4. It laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The Series 2, the Series 3, the Defender, even the Range Rover, introduced in 1970, owes its rugged DNA to this humble beginning. What began as a drawing in the sand became a British legend. Not through advertising, but through action. The Series 1 didn't just survive history, it helped shape it. It didn't just go off-road, it defined what off-road meant. It was born from scarcity, built with surplus, and designed to endure. Today, more than 75 years after its debut, many Series 1s are still running. Still climbing hills, still crossing fields, still proving that great engineering lasts. This was the Land Rover Series 1, the beginning of something much bigger. Not just a vehicle, but a legacy.
Right, I think I'm going to leave it there, and I'll tell you what, I'm pretty pleased with how this one's come out. It's absolutely night and day compared to the old one. And yeah, it went together fantastic. I made sure that all the panel lines were straight this time and that, because I did have a problem last time lining the roof and that up. But this one's went on fantastic. I managed to get all the decals on apart from one, just inside on the centre console there, but you can't see it anyway. So we've got away with that one. The glass is clear. The wheels, I spent a lot of time up here trying to making sure everything was going to fit properly in that. And it's went together fantastic. These wheels just dropped off after about a week. But hopefully they're on to stay in that. I painted as much detail in as I could with a brush and with the acrylic pen. And I'll tell you what, it looks alright, man. It looks alright. I'm happy with it anyway. So right, let's find it a place in the cabinet. We'll bring this video in. Fantastic. Right, I've stuck it on the top shelf there, alongside the lifeboat and the helicopter. Fantastic. The next model is going to be the start of the little bundle I managed to get my hands on yesterday. Another British iconic vehicle. You've already seen the Land Rover, but we're going to kick it off with this thing, the Ford Escort Mark 1. Absolutely iconic in Britain. Mint. Couldn't believe it when I seen this in the little stash and that. I've got some belters, some absolute belters. So if you want to see this getting built, or if you enjoyed this one, hit likes, hit subscribes and that, do all the YouTubey stuff for us and that. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next one when we'll put this thing together, the Ford Escort Mark 1. Mint. See you later.